few more minutes and make sure the temperature's just right. All go. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Paul Talley, and I'm this year's Master of Ceremonies. I'm also the commander of the Veterans of Foreign War Post 758 here in St. Albans. We will start today's celebration with the singing of our national anthem, sung by Bellas Free Academy student Emma Gibson.
Right shoulder, arms. Right shoulder, arms. Flags on.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets spread clear, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good job. Thank you, Emma. Today's Pledge of Allegiance will be led by students from the St. Albans City Elementary School.
I pledge of allegiance to this flag of the United States of America, to the republic in which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will now invite Dot Melton, Vietnam Veteran of America, to give us the invocation.
Uncover, please. Everlasting God, thank you that your ear is always attentive to our prayers. Hear our prayer for our military veterans today. Give them clear minds and peaceful hearts as you bless them for their service to us. May your divine love spread throughout their soul, saturating their whole being, that they may be built up in your likeness. Strengthen them through your limitless mercy and grace. Blessing and glory, wisdom and thanksgiving, honor, power, and strength be unto you, our God, forever and ever. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Dot. Melody Tebow will introduce our Grand Marshal.
Okay, Paul. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce our parade Grand Marshal, Bob Kuhn, and tell you a little about him. Bob is a 98-year-old World War II veteran from St. Albans. He joined the Army in 1943 and did his basic training at Camp Blanding, Florida. He then continued his training at Fort Benning, Georgia, at the Army Parachuting School, where he received his wings for parachuter. He then continued his training at the radio school. At age 19, Bob found himself in convoy on the way to his duty station. He was aboard the USS George Washington headed to the south of Europe, where he was to be assigned in the south of London. He then found himself parachuting into occupied Holland as part of Operation Market Garden. His next mission landed him at the Battle of the Bulge, where he experienced harsh conditions, low supplies to include food, bitter cold, and little sleep. Bob battled through all this to find himself at Nancy Hospital in France. He was cared for his battle wounds and fatigue, to include frostbitten hands and feet. In January of 1946, Bob arrived home aboard the Queen Mary and marched in the Victory Parade. Along with his many domestic and foreign combat awards, his most cherished was when he was designated as a distinguished member, page turn, of the 502nd Infantry Regiment. Bob was honorably discharged in 1946. Bob, thank you for your service, and thank you for being our Grand Parade Marshal today. Bob Kuhn. Everybody sit down.
Thank you, Melody. And since I'm the taller, again, thank you all for joining us today. I would like to recognize some special guests from various organizations joining us today, some of whom will speak later. Please rise to be recognized if you can as I call your name. Senator Bernie Sanders. Colonel Michael Coburn, United States Marine Corps. Mayor Tim Smith, St. Albans City. Sean Atkins, St. Albans Town Manager. Alan Brown, Vietnam Veterans of America and VFW. Christine Brown, American Legion Auxiliary and VFW Auxiliary. Sheila Spalding, VFW Auxiliary. Melody Tebow, Disabled American Veterans and the Franklin County Honor Detail. And VFW.
Yes, VFW.
Gary Godin, American Legion Commander. David Hemingway, Purple Hearts Association. And Bob Kuhn, Veteran and Grand Marshal. Aiden Hamler, St. Albans City School Team USA 8th grader and our student MC. Our Vietnam Veterans of America Color Guard. The Franklin County Honor Detail. Thank you all for helping making this celebration special. Today we honor every man and woman who has proudly worn the uniform and bravely defended our nation while protecting its people from evils of this world. Every American, no matter where they live or what they do, reap the benefits of their service. Today is a special day. It is, in fact, a remarkable day. As a veteran of foreign wars and as a member of an organization whose primary mission is to serve those who have served, I understand that Veterans Day is a day of deep significance, of opportunity. It is a day to recognize and honor the millions of men and women who have answered without hesitation when their country has called. All veterans, regardless of wartime service, stood, raised the right hand, and swore an oath to this great country. There are different variations, but all said, I do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Initially observed as Armistice Day, the 11th day of the 11th month marked the anniversary of the end of the World War I. It also honored its fallen. As our country and much of this world mourned, there remained a desperate glimmer of hope that the Great War would be the war that ended all wars. Of course, we know that that was not. World War II followed less than 2 decades later. Then the Korean War, Vietnam, the Gulf War, the Iraq War, and it was only 2 years ago that we ended America's longest war, the war in Afghanistan. As war and conflict continued, so did the courage and sacrifice of the American people who defended our nation and its interest. Many paid the ultimate sacrifice. Today should also be a day of reflection, a day when every American takes time to consider the legacy of freedom and liberty that has been passed on to us. It is a day to think about our tremendous responsibility and what it takes to maintain the land of the free and the home of the brave. Across the nation, patriotic Americans are gathering at events like this one and are remembering the countless sacrifices that our nation's veterans have endured. Our veterans cherish the values and virtues upon which our nation was founded and have bravely preserved them at all costs. So it is our responsibility to reflect on the many costs attached to our victories over tyranny and the many liberties we enjoy today because of their selfless and sacrifices. I encourage you each to seek out veterans. Ask questions, listen, take an interest in their stories. I encourage you to stop and thank these veterans. The simple words of thank you are important, and they mean more than what you know. Veterans Day is a day for every American citizen, no matter their race, religion, or political affiliation, to contemplate the price of our liberty. As we honor the veterans of our nation, we must also acknowledge and give thought to those currently serving. Those who wear the uniform of today's military service face a world of challenge and change. Thousands of our service members who have been thrust into the boiling conundrum of war, they too are veterans. As they serve to protect us all, we have an equal responsibility to care for them and their families. It is our obligation to do so. To do anything less would diminish and cheapen the service and sacrifice of millions of patriots who have selflessly served this country. We owe so much to today's generation of great patriots and all who have come before them. And while we can never repay the debt owed to them, we can show our appreciation through actions to ensure they receive proper and adequate medical care for their visible and invisible wounds, that they have every opportunity to pursue the American dream they sacrificed for. As grateful people, we must continue to do all we can to ensure our veterans get the benefits and recognition they have earned and deserve. Let us resolve right now to do these things with a renewed sense of purpose and gratitude. Today is the day to celebrate the courage, deeds, sacrifice, dedication, and commitment of all veterans who have served this great nation in what is the greatest nation in the world, thanks to their efforts. Happy Veterans Day to all American veterans, and sincere, heartfelt thank you. I will now invite Mayor Tim Smith to offer a few words.
Thank you, Paul. I'd like to welcome everyone today for joining us. I'd specifically like to point out the VFW Auxiliary. I don't know if many people know, but Gene Royer, 98 years old, just marched in the parade. Gene, over the years, Gene, you can find Gene selling poppies in front of the post office. And her age has never slowed her down. So Jean, thank you for being here, and thank you for all you do for the veterans. Stand up. So I'd like to, as Paul said, welcome all the dignitaries to St. Albans. A big thank goes out to all of you for making time in your day to honor our veterans. I'd also like to thank the City School and the Veterans of Foreign Wars for organizing this event. Thank you. And thank you to the city and town fire departments for their efforts to make sure that our large flag is flying over Main Street. And lastly, thank you to the St. Albans City and BFA school bands. As many of you know, I recognize individuals every year who have served our country and passed away recently. This year I'd like to recognize 3 individuals: Jimmy Chevalier, who served at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba; Gene French, a World War II veteran; and Pat Pyre, who served in Korea and Iraq. Every 3 months, I get, if you live in the city or parts of the town, you'll get a water bill. In that water bill is my mayor's message. And as part of that message, I encourage people to fly the American flag, not just on Veteran and Memorial Day, but on all days. I think slowly we're making headway as more and more flags are being displayed around our community. What I find interesting is many people choose to fly a number of other flags, but no American flag. The irony, without the sacrifice of our veterans who fought for free speech and our democratic way of life, those flags may never have seen the light of day. Let's fly the American flag right alongside of other flags you choose to fly and say thank you to our veterans for the privilege to fly all flags. Just this week, I sat in on an award ceremony of a government agency that were using City Hall for their event, and they asked one of their employees who was a veteran to say a few words about Veterans Day. And what the individual shared really hit home with me. What he shared with his team that was present was that after 20 years in the Army and National Guard, he chose to retire. And from what I gathered from his talk was that when a veteran does retire, they receive a summary of his or her commitments to the military, and part of that summary is the number of days of training and deployment they completed. Basically a report card of what was his or her family's commitment to the military and what it was. This individual, Larry McGraw, stated that he had 4,250 days of commitment to the military over 20 years. Think about that for a minute. That's 141 months, or a little more than 11 years. That is 4,250 days of missing out on Little League or basketball games, birthdays, dance recitals, family gatherings, weddings, funerals, graduations, hunting season, parent-teacher conferences, or just plain family interactions at the dinner table. That's sacrifice. When you look at the word sacrifice in the dictionary, it does not list veterans, but it should. I understand that the ultimate sacrifice is when a veteran gives his or her life for our country. But let's not forget that every veteran gives a piece of their life to this country based on the length of their service or the injuries they endured. It's not for us to judge how big of a piece they gave to protect all of us and other countries around the world, but to acknowledge that piece and thank them for what they've done. So for that, I'd like to, any veterans in the audience, I'd like to have you raise your hands. And let's express a round of applause for all those veterans that are here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. I will now invite Town Manager Sean Atkins to say a few words.
Good morning. First, I need to admit that I'm the backup choice to be here today on behalf of the town. Chairman Delorier, Brian, wanted to be here, but he's coaching his son's youth teams, so he's unfortunately not able to make it. Now, I'll be honest, I'm actually nervous to be the person to speak on behalf of the town today, and why? It's not only because I'm new here, but while there's nothing more honorable than to speak to you today, and especially the veterans, I don't feel like I deserve the honor. I'm the offspring of all branches of the United States military, the Air Force, the Army, Marines, and the Navy, and I need to say I put those in alphabetical order, just so I don't have to hear about it on Thanksgiving. So just want to make that clear. But I myself took the oath and enlisted in the Air Force when I was younger, and actually qualified for a SEER program contract, and only to have a medical issue, one of the few that actually would require political intervention to move forward, remove me from that. And I can honestly tell you that's one of the biggest regrets of my life, is that I can't shake your hands today as a fellow veteran. I take it very seriously and appreciate you very much. On the opposite side of the regret is appreciation and gratefulness, the two things that I extend to you today. The gratitude is made even more sincere as we recognize that we're all able to gather here safely today and celebrate your sacrifices, which is something I don't think that we shouldn't take for granted. I'm sure other people will touch upon today. It's, without you, we're not able I'm not able to stand here today, and thank you for it. So it doesn't go unnoticed. I grew up looking up to you, and I'll continue to do that for the rest of my life. And if these words in front of a microphone is some small way that I can communicate my appreciation to you personally, then today is one well spent. I'm honored to be given the opportunity to speak to you, and I hope that in some way I've remotely unearthed some of the true honor that you deserve for your service to us. I feel confident in speaking for all of St. Albans and saluting, welcoming, and supporting you in every way. Thank you.
Thank you, Town Manager Atkins. I would now like to introduce Senator Bernie Sanders.
Let me thank Paul and Melody and all the members of VFW 758 and the Women's Auxiliary. And let me once again acknowledge Bob Kuhn for his heroic service to our country. I just wanted to say a few words and maybe divide them up. To the veterans, we say thank you for your service to our country. When you put on the uniform, you have told the world that you were prepared to sacrifice everything to defend this country, and there is nothing more that a human being can do. Nothing more than that, to say that I'm prepared to give my life to defend this country, and that's a debt of gratitude that we can never repay. And I want to say, and I say this as the former chairman of the Senate Veterans Committee, that in my view, when people are prepared to make that sacrifice, we owe them and their families for the rest of their lives all that we can do. And among other things, that means that we guarantee health care, quality health care, to all of our veterans, that we make sure that they get the benefits that they are entitled to in a timely way. And when we talk about health care, by the way, I mean dental care, something that we're trying to incorporate into the VA healthcare system. I'm proud that in recent years we have made some progress in Congress in improving health care for veterans. Just last year we passed the PACT Act, which meant that veterans from Vietnam all the way to Afghanistan who were exposed to toxic air are now going to get the health care and the benefits that they need. And that means many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of veterans in Vermont and all over this country will finally get those benefits. So that's a step forward. To the young people, I want to say something as well. And that is, you have heard from the mayor and others about the word sacrifice. And when you use the word veteran, you use the word sacrifice. That's what it's about. Now, not everybody is going to join the military, and that's fine. But if we are going to be a great nation, we have got to think beyond ourselves, which is what veterans do by definition. They're there to give their lives for other people, for the country, for an idea of democracy and freedom. Now, there's some people in this country who think what life is about is to go out and make as much money as they can and to heck with everything else. That's not what veterans have thought. But we need people all over this country. We need right now. We need great doctors and nurses and dental technicians. We need people to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. We need great teachers. We need great child care workers. We need people in every aspect of our society to make this country truly great. It means thinking of others, thinking of the children, thinking of the old people. We need people to be working in nursing homes to make sure that our parents and grandparents have the quality care that they deserve. That's sacrifice. So I want to just conclude by, I'm very proud to be here in St. Albans today, because you guys are doing something that is unique. I don't know that it's done elsewhere in the state. You're bringing young people and the veterans and the whole community together. And that's no small thing. That's exactly what should happen. So it's a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to be here with all of you. Happy Veterans Day. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Aiden Hamler, who would you do this? Would you do us the honor of introducing our next few guest speakers?
Hello, my name is Aiden Hamler. I'm an 8th grader at St. Albans City School and a proud member of Team USA. Our team co-hosts Veterans Day every year in support of our local veteran organizations. I am honored to be a part of this year's ceremony, and I thank you all who have joined us here today. We should all be grateful for the freedoms we have in our lives. Many fellow citizens have made the choice to stay and enjoy the warmth of their homes and the company of their loved ones. These are all luxuries that you veterans did not have when you served. But thanks to your sacrifice during your service, those citizens were free to make that choice today. We will have speakers from 3 of our schools: St. Albans City School, St. Albans Town School, and Bellows Free Academy. Our first speaker is Jude Spencer from St. Albans City School.
Hello, my name is Jude Spencer, and thank you all for coming. Today, I will be talking about the importance of the military and their impact on us. One reason to appreciate the military is because they protect the people of the United States, which includes me and the people of St. Albans. Not only that, but the military has helped shape the history which has led to this moment. And we wouldn't be here where we are today without their efforts. For example, just over 80 years ago in World War II, if we didn't have a military, we wouldn't have been safe from Germany, which would be detrimental to the United States as a whole. I have grandfathers on both sides of my family and more people before them who are veterans. They have taught me so much over my 14 years of life, from how to find a problem in an engine to how to fix a computer. They have also taught me to be the best possible person I can be, because good things can come from it. From what I know, they have learned some of these traits and skills that they passed down to me from being in the military. As you can see, the military has made so much possible for not just me, but others too. I have even talked about how much they do that we take for granted. They leave their families, deal with emotions, and even risk their lives just so that we can have better ones. So for all the veterans who are here today, thank you for your service, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jude. For our second speaker, we have Evan Bosworth from St. Albans Town Educational Center.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Evan Bosworth, and I am from SATUP, just up the road over there. Today I'm feeling nervous, but also proud. Proud to be here to honor our veterans. But what is a veteran? To me, a veteran is my grandfather, my uncle, my other grandfather, and my dad. Oop, that was so sad. A veteran is someone who shows courage, even if they are scared. Someone who honors their commitments and keeps their promises. Someone who puts others before themselves, even if they are scared. But for me, a veteran is someone who coaches my hockey team. Someone who teaches me how to use a tractor and how to build and fix things. Someone who practices lacrosse skills with me and takes me to special events and brings me camping. Someone who shows me how to be kind and to care for others through his actions and his words. My dad teaches me how to stand on my own and be my own person while also helping others. Why am I telling you about my dad? Because my dad doesn't have any incredible strength or any other superpowers. What he does have, though, is a love for his country and our way of life. And he wants to help preserve it, because he knows that it's only possible to maintain our way of life due to our democracy. But democracy is fragile, and you have to stand up and protect it. Even if that means fighting for what you believe in, whether that is on a battlefield, at the ballot box, in public forums, or online. None of those things require superpowers, and any one of us can do them. It's the job of every person in America to stand up and protect it. So today, I want to honor my dad and all veterans near and far and thank them for their service. Thank you.
Please welcome our final student speaker, Abby Labounty from Bellows Free Academy.
Hello everyone, my name is Abby Labounty and I'd like to share why veterans are important to me. First of all, thank you for all being here and helping me celebrate the many veterans within our community. I'm a junior here at Bellows Free Academy and I have multiple family members that have served with the Vermont Army National Guard, which includes my mom, my dad, my stepdad, and my 2 grandfathers. Many soldiers and their families go through hardships after deployment and I would like to share a few of my experiences with you today. In 2010, my mom was deployed for 12 months. During this time, I was 3 years old, and there wasn't a lot to remember, but something that does come to mind were the nights when I wasn't able to Skype with her, and I didn't know how to comprehend these emotions. These days often ended in tears. Later in 2021, my stepdad answered the call to service and was gone for 9 months. My mom was pregnant at the time, and it pained me to see her in such stress, not knowing if he was going to make it back in time for my sister's birth. Luckily, our prayers were answered, and 6 days before she entered the world, he was able to make it home. More recently, my dad returned from a 10-month deployment, and this perhaps had the greatest impact on me. One of my sisters, being 6, didn't understand the importance of him being deployed and often gave my stepmom a difficult time. Being a little older, I observed this deployment as a reflection back to me feeling the same emotions when I was 3. I felt the need to give my sister more support as I remembered feeling the same way. This deployment had a toll on me that none of the others did. One particular memory, I was playing lacrosse, and I recall looking out on the sidelines, realizing that all my teammates' dads were there to see them play. Not seeing my dad and the many faces standing there was heartbreaking. When he originally left, I had the mentality that things would be easy and I would get through the 10 months like a breeze. With my dad being my hero and my leader, I learned this was not the case as I often felt defeated on the days I was thinking of him. I share this with you not to gain your sympathy, but to recognize the sacrifices families make alongside their service members. With this only being my experience having veterans in my life, there are many other families going through different situations that could have harder experiences with deployment. Overall, the soldiers that fight for you have gone through a lot thanks to their bravery and their loyalty to our country. I hope everyone continues to show the support that they deserve and earn by sacrificing so much. So if you ask me, why is it important to celebrate veterans and their loved ones? My answer to you would be that the hardships my family has experienced from deployment has taught us to stay strong when times are tough and to recognize the small things that we might not notice in our lives. And now I want to not only thank the veterans who have served from the past, present, and future, but to also thank their family members. Without them, the soldiers wouldn't have the support that they needed to not just complete their mission overseas, but to also continue showing bravery and loyalty to our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Mr. Talley will now introduce our Veterans Day speaker.
Thank you, Aiden. Thank you, Jude, Evan, and Abby, for your thoughtful speeches. It is now my honor to introduce the person who will provide our Veterans Day address. Colonel Michael J. Colburn is a freelance guest conductor and a clinician who regularly leads professional and student ensembles in festivals, residencies, and a variety of other settings throughout the country. In July 2022, he was appointed music director and conductor for the Me Too Orchestra, and in January 2023, he joined the faculty of the University of Vermont in an adjunct capacity. From 2014 to 2022, Colonel Colburn served as the director of bands at Butler University in Indianapolis, where he conducted the Butler University Wind Ensemble and offered instruction in conducting, euphonium, and the history of the literature of the wind band. Before his tenure at Butler, Colonel Colburn served for 27 years in the President's own United States Marine Band, where he held a variety of positions including principal euphonium, assistant director, and director. As director, Colonel Coburn was music advisor to the White House and regularly conducted the Marine Band and Chamber Orchestra at the Executive Mansion and at the President inaugurations of George W. Bush and Barack Obama. He was promoted to colonel by President Bush in a private Oval Office ceremony in 2007, and in 2014, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Medal by General James Amos, the Commandant of the Marine Corps. Colonel Coburn currently serves as the President of the American Bandmasters Association and the Vice President for the Project Enhancement for the John Philip Sousa Foundation, and is a member of the Washington, D.C.'s prestigious Gridiron and Alfalfa clubs. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Michael Coburn.
Thank you so much, everyone. It is really an honor to be here with all of you today to share my thoughts and my perspective on Veterans Day, which, as you might imagine, is largely informed by my 27 years in the Marine Corps. But it's also informed by the same kind of family connection that you've heard about from several other speakers here today. You see, my father, Vern Colburn, a name that I'm sure is familiar to many of you, was the longtime band director at Bellows Free Academy, wearing the green and gold that you see over here on the right, my right. And he was really a pillar, a musical pillar of this community, and part of that role came through his position as the commander of the 40th Army National Guard Band in Burlington. That was a position that he held for many years. And in addition to that Army service, my family too has all the services very well represented. Between my brother, my uncles, and my cousins, we have service in the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Coast Guard, and the Marine Corps. And so Veterans Day is very much a family tradition for the Colburn family, as it is for many of the other families that you've heard about here today. I also want to say a few words about this ceremony here in Taylor Park. My earliest memory of Veterans Day observances came right here in this town, in this park, wearing that green and gold uniform. Ours were a little different than yours, but the green and gold uniform that you see in the BFA band. I marched down Main Street for many Veterans Day ceremonies, came right here to Taylor Park, and took part in the very kind of ceremony that we have here today. And I will tell you, I've had the privilege of observing Veterans Day in so many places around the nation, in particular at Arlington National Cemetery in the amphitheater there, and a number of other cities around the country as well. And folks, it doesn't get any better than what you're experiencing right here in St. Albans, Vermont. This, to me, is the quintessential Veterans Day observance. And seeing especially the multi-generational aspect of this that Senator Sanders talked about, really to me is what this day should be about in every community across this nation. So today I'd like to talk a little bit about the role of music in observing Veterans Day and inspiring patriotism and thoughts of appreciation for valor and sacrifice. Military and civic leaders have understood the potential of music to do this for hundreds of years. From the earliest records of standing military organizations in Europe, there was a musical component. And that was because those early leaders understood the potential and the power of music to recruit, to retain troops, to, of course, drill them, to use musical signals on the battlefield, but also to entertain those troops and to entertain the public, because without support of the citizenry, no military can enjoy success in any nation or culture. Well, our founding fathers here in the United States understood this as well, for on July 11th, 1798, Congress passed an act that reestablished the Marine Corps, which had been disbanded after the Revolutionary War. And as part of that act that was signed by President John Adams, there was a clause that there would be a unit in this new Marine Corps that would consist of a drum major, a fife major, and 32 fifers and drummers. And this was the birth of the President's own United States Marine Band. And early, or even in those early days when that act specified fifers and drummers, those musicians were incredibly versatile. And from the earliest days of the Marine Band, they were playing ceremonies and concerts on other instruments, and ceremonies that were taking place at the White House, and thus began the relationship that the president's own has with the White House and with the presidency to this day. We have played for every president since John Adams. We played at Thomas Jefferson's first inauguration in 1801 and have played at every inauguration since then. So the history of the Marine Band in many ways parallels the history of our country. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment, but I want to revisit this idea of how music can inspire thoughts of patriotism and thoughts of appreciation for the sacrifice of veterans. And of course, the first and foremost way that music does this is often through the lyrics that are associated with a tune. When we think of our national anthem, when we think of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, when we think of America the Beautiful, we often think of those meaningful and powerful words that are associated with those tunes. But in some cases, music can inspire patriotism without any words whatsoever. And there's no greater example of this than John Philip Sousa's greatest march, The Stars and Stripes Forever, which not only inspires thoughts of patriotism, but was indeed inspired itself by thoughts of patriotism. Just a little background about John Philip Sousa, who I'm sure is a familiar name to many of you, but he was born in Washington, D.C. In 1854, the son of a trombone player in the President's own United States Marine Band. And in fact, John Philip Sousa cut his musical teeth in the Marine Band as a musical apprentice. He was apprenticed to the band from age 13 to age 20. So that may be especially meaningful to you guys over there about your age. John Philip Sousa was spending his days with the Marine Band, learning music and the other essentials of his education. He left the band when he was 20 years of age, struck out as a freelance musician for about 5 years, and then rejoined the band not as a player, but as the director at the tender young age of 25. He rose to great heights of stardom as the director of the Marine Band. It was during this time that he started writing the marches that resulted in his nickname, the March King. But I'm sad to say that he did not compose the Stars and Stripes while he was the director of the Marine Band. He actually composed it a few years after he left the band. And believe it or not, he did not compose that march while he was on American soil. He was actually overseas on vacation when he learned the news of the passing of his dear friend and tour manager, David Blakely. And Sousa was so shaken by this news that he ended his vacation and boarded a steamship back to America. And it was during that journey, which took, of course, several days back to America, that he was strolling the deck and was incredibly homesick. He was overwhelmed by feelings of homesickness. And all of a sudden, this image came to him. It was really a memory, but it was also a vision of the American flag flying over the White House, a scene that Sousa had seen many times as he made his way from Marine Barracks 8th and I across town to the White House for some event or concert that he was doing there. And this vision stayed with him for several days. And as he was strolling the deck and thinking about the American flag, the melodies that would comprise the Stars and Stripes suddenly appeared to him. And he notated these down and continued to work on this march after he returned to the U.S. He finished it on Christmas Day, 1896. And from the moment he finished this march and performed it for the very first time, he knew he had something special. Because audiences, wherever he played this march, erupted in applause and were incredibly enthusiastic. Now, I don't think Sousa knew at that moment that he wrote a march that would become officially our national march, but he knew that he had something special. And the fact that this music not only inspired patriotism, but was inspired by patriotism, I think is so meaningful. Back when I was director of the Marine Band, I would often get the question, how many times have you played or conducted the Stars and Stripes Forever? How many times have you played the national anthem? How many times have you played the Marines hymn? And oftentimes, implied in this question was kind of the suggestion, aren't you kind of sick of playing these tunes over and over and over again? And what I would tell people is that anytime I would come close to maybe becoming a little tired of playing one of those pieces of music, those feelings immediately disappeared as soon as I saw the response that those pieces of music elicited from our audiences. Hearing them erupt in applause when we would just start the Stars and Stripes. We hadn't even played more than a few notes, and already the audience was applauding. Or being on a national concert tour and playing the Marines hymn and seeing grizzled old veterans, some in wheelchairs or on walkers, struggling to their feet to stand at attention for the Marines hymn, because by God, that's what you do when you're a Marine. When you hear the Marines hymn, you stand at attention if you are able. And seeing that happen over and over and over again really ensured that those pieces never lost their magic. They never lost that inspiration for the people who were playing them or the people who were listening to them. You know, there's a symbiosis between performers and audiences that I think sometimes audience members don't realize. Audiences often feel energized and inspired by what they hear on stage. But I will tell you, those performing musicians are equally inspired by what they hear and they feel from our audiences. You know, the Marine Band, when they go on tour, they play in some of the most magnificent concert halls you can possibly imagine in the country, places like Carnegie Hall. And those are wonderful experiences musically and acoustically. But sometimes we play in the best venue that a community can offer. For example, when we play here in St. Albans, we play at the Collins Pearly Complex. We play in gymnasiums, we play in field houses, we play at whatever venue that community can offer. And sometimes the sponsors for those concerts will almost apologize for those venues. And we're always quick to tell them, please don't apologize for this, because you have no idea how meaningful it is for our band members to actually see our audiences, to see how excited they are by the music that we're performing for them. So we love playing in places like Collins Pearly because we can really enjoy and appreciate the energy and the excitement that the audience brings. So back to the history of the Marine Band. As I said, the history of the band really parallels the history of this country. And that meant that the Marine Band was on hand for so many exciting things that happened, especially in Washington, D.C. Let's say the dedication of the Washington Monument or the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, all of those magnificent monuments. You can be guaranteed the Marine Band was on hand for the dedication of those events. We were on hand for exciting things like bill signings and treaty signings and other really historically significant events. But there were some times that we were on hand for events that were not so festive, that were not really celebrations, but were somewhat more somber in nature. And a great example of this happened on November 19th, 1863, when the Marine Band found itself in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, on hand for the dedication of the National Cemetery there at Gettysburg. The band actually rode on a train with President Abraham Lincoln from Washington, D.C. up to Gettysburg. And we're there performing music appropriate for the event when Lincoln delivered his unforgettable Gettysburg Address. The band has been on hand for a number of anniversaries of this dedication ceremony, including one that happened in 2013 when I was serving as director. It was the 150th anniversary of the dedication of Gettysburg. And after that event was over, an older gentleman came up and introduced himself to me as a former member of the band. He was a clarinet player in the band. He said, I want you to know that I was in the band here at Gettysburg in 1963 when we were celebrating the 100th anniversary of the dedication of this ceremony, of the cemetery. And of course, President Kennedy was on hand to deliver those remarks. And President Kennedy came up to the band afterwards and said, I want to personally thank you for being here today because I know that you just got back from a national concert tour, and actually you're supposed to be on leave right now. You're supposed to be enjoying time with your families. But you're here today because I'm here today, because you're the president's own, and I'm here delivering these remarks. You were assigned to duty here, and I want to let you know how much I appreciate that. And I also want to let you know I'm looking forward to hearing you guys. I hope you can take some time now and spend some time with your families. And I will see you all next week when I get back from Dallas. So when this former Marine Band member told me the story and he delivered that last line, I will see you next week when I get back from Dallas, I could see him searching my face, wanting to know if I understood really the import of those remarks. And I'm sure you all understand as well that when the next time the Marine Band had the opportunity to perform for President Kennedy, it was leading his funeral procession through the streets of D.C. in order to be laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery. And when this former Marine Band member told me this story, I was awash in emotions and thoughts about the echoes of history, of how the Marine Band performed at the front of the funeral procession for President Kennedy, just as it had 100 years earlier at the funeral procession for Abraham Lincoln. And that the Marine Band had been present for so many significant national events, again, many of which were celebrations, but many of which were somber and serious. And it reminded me, as it does today, that our most important responsibility as military musicians is providing the appropriate music to acknowledge and recognize that ultimate sacrifice that so many have made, whether they were presidents who were assassinated while serving our country, or they were fallen Marines taken from us in combat, or after they have come home and retired and resumed their lives with their families. But still, their sacrifice, their contribution is so important that our ability to recognize that through our music is incredibly meaningful and really the most important thing that we do. Of course, the most important musical tribute to any veteran is the sounding of taps. And like Gettysburg, taps had its origins in the Civil War. It was created by General Dan Butterfield, who the reason it came about was that the general really didn't like the bugle call that happened at the end of the day, that generally called lights out or extinguished lights at the time. He didn't really feel it was appropriate. And so he started talking to his bugler about coming up with a different call. And so together they fashioned taps from an existing bugle call, but altered it a little bit. And he first started using this when, in the days following the 7 Days Battle, in which he lost several members of his unit. And it was so popular, there was something about taps that spoke to the soul of anyone who listened to it, that it almost immediately started being used at the close of the day, not only by Union troops, but by Confederate troops who heard this off in the distance and were so moved by this bugle call that they started using it as well. So earlier when I was talking about the power of music to move us, to make us feel patriotic, to make us feel that sense of national pride, often comes from lyrics. But in music like the Stars and Stripes Forever or Taps, there were no lyrics involved. And in the case of Taps, it's such a simple melody. It's just a few notes, a few rhythms, but there is something in the architecture of that music that speaks to the soul of anyone who listens to it. So I thought the most appropriate way to conclude my remarks is to share with you some lyrics that were actually written after the fact, lyrics that were inspired by this very simple melody that is the ultimate tribute to military sacrifice. And I'd like to close my remarks with those lyrics today. Day is done, gone the sun, from the hills, from the lake, from the skies. All is well, safely rest, God is nigh. Go to sleep, peaceful sleep, may the soldier or sailor God keep, on the land or the deep, safe in sleep. Love, good night, must thou go, when the day and the night need thee so? All is well, speedeth all to their rest. Fades the light, and afar goeth day, and the stars shineth bright. Fare thee well, day has gone, night is on. And finally, thanks and praise for our days, neath the sun, neath the stars, neath the sky. As we go, this we know, God is nigh. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Colburn. As we conclude today's events, I would like to give a special thank to Zach Kelly and the St. Albans City School Band, Eric Bushy and the BFA School Band, the Vietnam Veterans of America Color Guard, the Franklin County Honor Detail, Greg Cattell, John Coffey, and Melody Tebow for planning today's events. St. Albans City Town Fire Department for displaying our nation's flag. To the families who supported all of us